my brothers and sisters in gaming, welcome back to the channel. As always, I am Jonathan, your host here at QuickBird Gaming. Thank you for tuning in for another video. I really appreciate it. Today's episode of QuickBird News is going to cover the news from Sunday, March 2nd to Saturday, March 8th. And since we got lots to talk about, I better get into it. I'll open with this article from Video Games Chronicle, which was published on Wednesday, the 5th of March. The Last of Us creator casts doubt on a third game in the series. Don't bet on there being more of Last of Us, says Naughty Dog president Neil Druckmann. Now, this came out during an interview with Variety, and down here in the article, Druckmann says, I was waiting for this question when Variety raised the prospect of a third game, and he says, I guess the only thing I would say is don't bet on there being more Last of Us. This could be it. Now, if you read down in the article, Druckmann talks a little bit about the television adaptation of Last of Us. One season is completed and out. The second one is going to debut on April 13th. He has stated he wants to do maybe 4 total seasons to tell this entire story. So he has really pivoted The Last of Us towards television for the near future. This wasn't completely slamming the door in the face of there being a third game. And he does say that he had kind of gone back and forth and has an idea for where it would go if it were developed. Doesn't sound like he's too enthusiastic about it, though. Naughty Dog does have an upcoming IP called Intergalactic, a new game that was recently revealed to be coming out sometime in the future. You know, a teaser was shown for it. Remains to be seen how well that will do for them. But as a games franchise, the Naughty Dog story is probably going to end at 2 games. I know that will disappoint a lot of fans of these games. The first one made a big splash on the scene when it came out in 2013. The second one, while it didn't do quite as well as the first one, it came out in 2020, was generally pretty well received. So, unfortunately, this is going to be another intellectual property that is just going to die on the vine. And that's too bad. Next, I feel like I have to mention this article from kitguru.net, also published on Wednesday, 5th of March. Assassin's Creed Shadows preload details announced. Game unlocks early on Ubisoft Connect, which of course it does. It unlocks on the 19th of March, one day early for Ubisoft Connect, and then on the 20th for everybody who's purchased the game. The preload starts on the 4th of March for Xbox, so as of the posting of this video, people should already be able to preload it. On the 17th for PC and the 18th for PS5. AC Shadows has had such a tumultuous path to publication. All I can say to Ubisoft at this point is good luck. I think you're going to need it. Next is this bit from GameSpot, which was published on Friday, March 7th. The headline reads, Leaked Battlefield 6 playtest gameplay shows what's next for the franchise. Leaked gameplay footage of the next, still untitled Battlefield game is making its way online, giving fans a glimpse of what the future of the franchise will entail. This isn't that uncommon. They are basically having a small number of people come in and I guess alpha test some of the game's mechanics, and inevitably, even though these people have all signed NDAs, eventually footage is going to leak online. EA initially seemed to be pulling down leaked footage of the test, but a lot of clips are continuing to circulate. You can look and you go down through the article, it actually gives a pretty good rundown of what they are describing. I'm not real familiar with the Battlefield franchise, but they describe how the UI looks similar to that of Battlefield 42, but features a return to the franchise's tried and true class system. Destruction looks to be back in a big way. Footage shows more environmental destruction than in 2042. That it is set in the modern day. And let's see, in a post on X, the official Battlefield account outlined some of the key features being tested as part, namely gunplay and movement. The new servers feature 60 Hz tick rates to ensure the game more frequently updates positions and actions, and will display bullets faster after pressing fire to, quote, decrease input delay and make shooting feel more responsive, which helps you track and hit moving targets. So there's a lot of information here. If you are a fan of Battlefield, I would check out this article. I do know that Battlefield 2042 was a giant shit show for the players because of how broken and buggy it was on release. From what I understand, a lot of those details have been fixed now 2 or 3 years after the fact, and there was some conjecture as to whether or not DICE would ever release another Battlefield game. But it's in the works, so if you are a fan, go check out this article and kind of get some information about what's coming ahead. Since we were talking about Battlefield, this seems like a good time to follow up with this article from Dual Shockers, which was published today on Saturday, March 8th. And the headline reads, Split Fiction manages to do what Battlefield couldn't for EA with concurrent players on Steam. And the first sub-bullet says, Split Fiction sets a record for EA's highest concurrent players for a premium game at over 250,000. Premium not counting things like Apex Legends, which were free to play. So this is pretty impressive that EA has put out this game and it has become a raging success just in the last 2 days. I believe it was released on Thursday, March 6th. And it's doing quite well. It is the first EA game in forever to hold a 90 Metacritic score, which is impressive. If you flip over to its Steam page and look, it has over almost 7,600 reviews, and 98% of them are positive. So this is a major, major win for this cooperative title. And you know what else? If you look at it, it doesn't have DRM. It doesn't have an EA Play account required to activate, and it doesn't have microtransactions. And yet it's still selling well, and people are loving it. It's amazing if you give the players what they want and don't overload it with a bunch of useless crap and just let them have a fun game to play, that they'll buy it, they'll support it, they'll rave about it, and they'll love it. I haven't played Split Fiction yet. I've seen some gameplay footage, and people seem to really be enjoying it. So this is a win for EA. Will they learn their lesson? Probably not. You know, greed gets the best of every company in the end, seems like, especially every major corporation. But for the moment, we'll celebrate their success. This game comes from the developer Hazelight Studios. They're the same folks who put out It Takes Two. So they really seem to be building and developing this cooperative gameplay style. And it looks like to me like they're winning. They're doing a great job. So kudos to them. I'm happy to see some success stories. And in today's episode of I Didn't See This Coming is this article from Engadget published on Tuesday, March 4th. Acclaim is back from the ashes to support indie games and revive its own classic franchises. Now, Acclaim was pretty big back in the 80s and 90s. They had a lot of licensed titles, including Spider-Man games, Terminator, Alien, The Simpsons, NBA Jam. There's a list of them down here or later in the article. The company ran into problems in the early 2000s, declared bankruptcy in 2004, and was carved up and sold for, piecemeal. After that, the franchises were sold off. And then now this says, now more than 20 years later, a group of industry veterans has revived the publisher with the aim of supporting indie developers and revitalizing its own gaming franchises. This was a surprise in an industry where things sometimes die and stay dead, never to be seen again. Acclaim has picked itself up from the dirt, brushed off its sleeves, and is back in business. So we'll see what happens there. Well, it would not be a gaming news episode if I didn't have closures, layoffs, and cancellations to talk about, unfortunately. And this week's no exception. I have two articles, the first of which is from IGN, published on Friday, March 7th. Respawn has quietly canceled a multiplayer FPS incubation project, and an unknown number of individuals appear to have been laid off as well. And this comes down from, this says this news was first reported by Insider Gaming, sourcing a now unavailable LinkedIn post from a former production coordinator who wrote that the unannounced project I was part of for the past year was canceled this week. IGN has been able to independently confirm that Respawn has canceled an unannounced project. They understand it was an FPS multiplayer spun off by members of an internal team which was formerly working on a Star Wars FPS at Respawn, which was itself canceled last year. IGN can also confirm that a number of individuals have been laid off as part of the cancellation. Now, obviously, Respawn, who produced Apex Legends, has a lot of experience in the multiplayer shooting genre, so this is concerning that they couldn't get this one off the ground. At the same time, we have over on Eurogamer this article that was published on Wednesday, March 5th. Until Dawn Remake Studio reportedly, quote, effectively closed with all developers gone, and this follows several rounds of redundancies. The studio Ballistic Moon has reportedly effectively closed amid claims only a handful of employees remain at most, none of whom are developers. So you can't. This is, how do you have a car without an engine? You don't have a game company without developers. Ballistic Moon had a round of layoffs last year, and then a reported Insider Gaming claims the studio quietly made a second round of redundancies at the end of last year, letting go 40 employees. And somebody down here says, people are sharing bugs that they found in the game to make the team aware, but no one's working on a patch support for the game anymore. So another week, another set of layoffs. This isn't as severe as some, but still games that are losing their support, being canceled, and people out of jobs. I've said it before, this is just the nature of the industry we live in now. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. We also have this article from TechSpot, published on Friday, March 7th. Nintendo wins another lawsuit against file sharing service hosting pirated content. And as you scroll down here, it said earlier this week, Nintendo emerged victorious against French file sharing company D-Storage. The company owns and operates the One Fichier, I'm sure I'm getting that wrong, web service which hosts pirated Nintendo content. Let's see. The French Cour de Cassation, again, butchering, my apologies to any people who speak the language better than me, ruled that file sharing companies must remove illegal content from their servers. It explained to D-Storage that IP owners only need to prove they own the content. Refusing to remove protected files only results in larger damages and penalties. Nintendo called its victory a significant win. Nintendo's message to consumers is not to download pirate copies of Nintendo games, as this increases the risk this will interfere with the functionality and experience of playing legitimate games, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I feel a couple different ways about this. On the one hand, I don't like Nintendo's practice of isolating their games to their hardware, because frankly, their hardware is ass compared to other handhelds and consoles and PCs. It just doesn't even benchmark that well. However, that's their right as a company to do so, and I think they're perfectly entitled to go after people who are pirating their intellectual property. At the same time, all this is going to do is move the pirate sites to places like Russia or China, places where Japan has less, a Japanese company, Nintendo, has less legal recourse. The ROMs and the emulators are going to move into the wilder, more untamed part of the internet. It's hosted in companies that don't give a crap about copyright. And so I don't think it's going to make a whole lot of difference in the long run. People who want it will still go out there and get it. Then we have this goofy story from Game Rant, which was published yesterday on Friday, March 7th. New Resident Evil movie locks down release date. It is set for September 18th of 2026. And anybody who's kind of watched the Resident Evil movies knows that they are cheesy to the point of being campy. I actually like them somewhat, but I also know they're an absolutely terrible representation of the games themselves. Possibly you could make the argument that the second Resident Evil movie was a decent reimagining of Resident Evil 3. But beyond that, they've pretty much just grabbed random bits and pieces of the games and stuck them in and called it a Resident Evil movie, including the characters. So this article kind of details what's, the speculation of what's going to happen. The second bullet point probably makes the most salient point. The film is aiming to tap into the original game's horror roots, which suggests a possible retelling of Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine's story. Some people are reading comments by the director that he wants to get back to the game's horror roots, that they're going to go back to the Spencer Manor from the first game, and maybe we'll see Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine have their story told a little better. One can hope. We really do have a lack of good video game to movie or TV show and adaptations. So I guess we'll see. Can't do worse than the last ones, I guess. And if we could file this one in the Yes Please folder, this article from Eurogamer, which was published on March 3rd, so that would be Monday of last week, it says, Hideki Kamiya still wants to resurrect the canceled Scalebound. Now, this was a game that was in development back in the late 2010s and was canceled in 2017. Kamiya has now founded a new studio, Clovers, and is developing a sequel to Okami. A new post on the Clovers account includes a video showing, quote, some excitement around Kamiya's desk. He was reminiscing about the development of Scalebound while watching YouTube videos. Now, Scalebound was planned to be a game with a human protagonist with a dragon sidekick, and it sounded really awesome. and unfortunately, it didn't work out. After a few years of development, the Xbox One exclusive game was canceled. Microsoft and Platinum Games parted ways, but it wasn't completely buried. In 2021, Kamea publicly apologized to Microsoft for Scalebound's cancellation after discussing challenges and admitting we weren't experienced enough. Then in 2022, Platinum president Atsushi Inaba, my apologies if I said that wrong, revealed in an interview with IGN that Kamea had been talking about wanting to work on Scalebound again for a while. So, anything's possible. Acclaim was dead and buried, and now it's not. So will we see Scalebound in the future? The game really intrigued me, the idea of it. So I hope Kamea can get it back off the ground. Here's fingers crossed. We'll see what happens. And that's going to do it for me this week. I have yammered on long enough. If you hung with me all the way to the end, I really appreciate that. As always, if you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to the channel, drop a like on the video, leave a comment down below, tell me what you liked or didn't like. All that helps with my engagement, and I thank you in advance for doing so. In the meantime, it's about bedtime for me, so I'm going to call it here, and I will get back to making some more videos in the near future. Thanks again to everyone. You all go out there, live your best lives. Y'all stay gaming.